All right. Good morning, guys. So today's recording is for July 7th, and we are in Zechariah 9 through 11. And this particular chapter, like the way chapter 9 starts, it starts us off in these three chapters. It's just full of so much revelation. It's almost like in the beginning it was talking about again like judgment coming against like the enemies, people who made themselves enemies of God's people. And again, it was just showing that where do you put your trust? Like are you putting your trust in God or are you putting your trust in worldly possessions? Because a lot of times when people have great possessions, because they have these possessions, they have a lot of great security that's put in place because they feel like, they want to protect themselves, but ultimately they want to protect their possessions. But it's one of those things when you make God as an enemy, it don't matter what you put up or what you think you have, it means nothing because it won't stop God from bringing judgment to you, right? So it's just like, and now in this time, like, what are we putting our hope in? What are we putting our trust in? Like, not to get caught so much up in things of the world. Like when you see people that have all of these things, all of these possessions, and it look like they're so safe and they're so fortified. When it's one of those things, they're so exposed if God is not the one at the forefront of everything. And that's just something to always keep in the back of your mind and in your spirit that that's the way that you can always win and always be victorious is when you know that God is the one out there fighting for you, right? And so one of the parts that with chapter 9 it speaks to a future. And we know this part very well as believers because it was one of those things like when we get excited, even when we think about Hosanna, right? And so one of the things that it's talking about is rejoice, the people of Zion. And it says, look, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and victorious, yet he is humble on a donkey, riding on a donkey's coat. And it was, talking about Jesus. And he said, your king will bring peace to the nations, right? He said that I will repay two blessings for each of your troubles, right? He said, Judah is my bow, Israel is my arrow, and Jerusalem is my sword. And like a warrior, I will brandish it against the Greeks. Like God, it was one of those things that in Zechariah's time, they were coming back. So he wasn't necessarily the prophet speaking about what was about to happen, like the warning, but it was one of those things where there was that hope still laced with warning. Because God is hope, God is love, God is all of those things, but then there has to be obedience. There has to be like a surrender, a actual putting your trust in Him for you to be able to experience and to walk into all of the great things that He does promise us, right? And so, one of the things that He was talking about, too, is that he said they will sparkle in his land like jewels on a crown, right? That's just something that when we see it is beautiful. And that's why it's almost like I think so many people pull away from the Old Testament because they feel like it's so over your head that it's almost like you don't even want to attempt it or try to get into it. But there's so much poetry, there's so much stuff in this Old Testament that is amazing. And I'm not young, so I'm not acting like, I'm so far ahead because this is the first time in my life that I'm taking this walk through the Bible, and it's just amazing. And I'm gonna say I wish I had did it sooner because it's almost like you allow yourself to constantly hear and constantly be told how hard it is to read the Old Testament, how hard it is to read the Whole Testament, but you never pick it up and be like, okay, whatever's hard, like get through that initial part. And I'm talking to myself right now because anytime you desire change, which ultimately is transformation, it's like that initial part is usually the hardest. And it's almost like once you get into it and it's like you get on course, it's like, okay, now not allowing yourself to be distracted and constantly pulled away. but to like set it and like keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, right? So that was just a quick side note. But then the second thing is that in chapter 10, he was just talking about like when God restores, right? And he was talking about he will make his people strong and glorious, right? Like a proud war horse in battle. He said, I will strengthen Judah and save Israel. It will be as though I had never rejected them, right? He said, I will become like, they will become like mighty warriors, and their hearts will be made happy. Their hearts will rejoice in the Lord, and I will whistle to them, and they will come running. It's like, can you imagine that day? Like, you know how first when God calls you, like, is that God? Like, am I hearing right? And it's just so much wrestling, like, as you're entering into a walk with God. But then imagine that you get your walk so on point that now He whistles and you come running. Like, get caught up in that, like, the idea that God can say, "Hey, Avon," and you be like, "Yes, Lord," and that's it. Like, there's no hesitation, there's no doubt, there's no back and forth. There's just a response in your heart because you've developed that trust. You've worked out that faith muscle, like all of the things that God calls us to do, like walk it out, so that we can have this kind of response. That was just something that I got really excited about. I'm just saying, I really got excited about that. And it was one of those things he said, by my power, I will make my people strong. And even like in different things that we do, I think we get so much caught up in what we can't do, and this is for me, like so much caught up in what we can't do that it overpowers and it overtakes what God can do. And it's almost like even what God says. And that's that going back to having patience. It's almost like God will show you something and you want the end result. But it's almost like if He said it is true, how do I get up and live my life like that victory is coming? Like that's already won because God said it, and not get caught up in this and caught up in that and all of the things that we see happening around us, but get caught up in the fact that God said it. And if He said it, and I promise, like in 2026, that is exactly how I'm living my life. It's one of those things where everything around me looks different, but I'm like, but God, you said. And when I get up, that is literally what I'm holding on to. And it's one of those things like as God is changing me and building me up, like I'm getting excited about that. But it's just knowing that God said. And this is the first time because one of the things that you hear, like I think when I first got saved, was the whole thing about favor, 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 favor. And it's like sometimes it gets used in such a great way where it brings honor to God, but then other times it gets abused where it actually takes away the glory from God. But this was the first time I ever saw it, like in the book of the Bible, when he talked about the shepherds and the staffs. And he said one of his staffs was going to be called favor, and one of them was going to be called union, right? And that was the first time that I saw the word favor actually in the Bible. So I kind of got excited with that. And he went to talk about, but he was just talking about the shepherds and how he was going to be taking away their power, and that he ultimately was going to come in as the shepherd. But then it was also that warning that was saying that even though he was going to come in now as the shepherd, that he would be rejected, that so many people would not receive him, right? And it was one of those things where he said, when people don't receive of me, I'm going to leave them to like their own way. And I'm just saying, like in today's time, like we see that. So it's almost like we don't want to be left to our own way. We want to pull and push and fight to get to God's way because we want that victory. Whatever promise it is that God gave to us, even if it's just that knowing that we get to spend eternity with him, that he said that I'll leave, to go and prepare a place for you. Like there's so much room in my father's house. Like basically it was a house built in heaven that had us in mind. Like if let that be like the beginning of that relationship. And then as you walk it out and take certain things off of yourself, you get allowed to experience these other new things and walk in it and appreciate it and enjoy it, right? Like even the power now to be able to pray for somebody else. Like it's like if whatever you're going through, because I know somebody, one of my good friends, she shared with me like a movement that's going on. And the hope was that 1 million people would pray for 1 million people. And it would just be by asking one person to pray for somebody else, that we have power, we have authority. And that's how we can be good shepherds. It's one of those things like you're looking for a big ministry or all these other things when God is like giving us a way to go ahead and be a part of something huge by asking us to do our part, which is a small part, but it's still for a lot of people, it takes discipline to even let somebody stay on your heart for a period of time that you get up and you pray for that person on a daily basis because you want to see God move in their life, right? So he ends chapter 11 with a warning again toward the shepherds, right? Because it's one of those things that if you're given a role over God's people, it is something so great in his eyes because his people is something that means so much to him. And he was like, "Woe to the person who abandons the flock," right? That it's almost like he said his arm will become useless and his right eye completely blind, right? But that was just one of those things where so many times I think we see leaders that just find themselves in different positions, and it's so easy to make that a conversation, to pick up the phone and be like, "Well, did you hear about so and so? I can't believe so and so did that." Like a lot of times we get that so much in the world. It's almost like the world is salivating, waiting so that that could be a topic of discussion to have like as soon as you walk in a room. So it's almost like amongst ourselves, we gotta be that contrast and be the difference where we're constantly lifting them up, not waiting for them to fall. Like anytime I see somebody doing well and becoming a great example, I'll start praying for them because it's almost like they're going to enter into a different place where the temptations, everything is going to be so much greater. And it's like, I don't wanna see them come to their fall, like, that's just not my heart. I don't wanna see these people go through anything so bad, so I could just sit back like everybody else and be like, "Mm, look, I knew that was gonna happen." No, I know I serve a great God, and it's almost like they're out there and they're telling people how great God is. I wanna see them, protected and blessed and allowed to continue to walk in their ministry, whatever it is that God has given them a talent in, right? I want to see it multiplied, right? So that is my share for this morning. I pray everybody is having a good time, or just, experiencing the great power of walking with God through this Old Testament. And I look forward to speaking to you guys later.